Think about the last time you did something at work that you didn't charge for. Maybe it was a nail clip. Maybe it was an ultrasound on a patient that came in crashing, and you just did it because there wasn't really time to stop and talk money first. Maybe you meant to add it to the bill later, and you forgot. Or maybe, and be honest here, you left it off on purpose because you'd already had one fight about money with a client earlier today, and you didn't have a second argument in you. If you're a clinic owner, then I know you're sitting there nodding along going, I see this all the freaking time. The reality is that we've all done it. I've done it, probably this week. And it can feel like nothing because it's just one scan or just a little nail clip until you start adding it up. Did you know that the American Animal Hospital Association reckons somewhere between 5 and 10% of a clinic's entire revenue just magically disappears this way? Not fraud, not theft, just forgetting. Too busy, too generous, or too tired to give a shit. There goes that pay rise that you've been hoping for. Here's why we're so bad in the vet profession at missed billing. It's because finding those missed charges has until now been almost impossible. You'd have to read every note that your vets wrote and line it up against every charge and then look for the mismatches. Some clinics actually try this. I know of one large group who hired a vet full-time on a real salary, an actual person, to just sit there and do this every single day. But you know what AI is really good at? I'm Hubert Timstra, and you're listening to the VetVault Tech for Vet series, where we explore what's possible for veterinarians using the right tech tools to make your life easier, and in this one, more profitable. The tool that we're looking at today is called SmartCapture, and it's fixing this very real problem of magically disappearing profit with some very clever use of AI. Dr. Patrik Holmboe is another AI-pilled vet who likes to find exciting ways to fix boring problems, and he joins us for a product walkthrough of this Beyond the AI Note Taker tool. If you've been with me through this tech series, you'd have heard me call AI Scribes the gateway drug into AI for vet practice. This episode is what is on the other side of that gateway. Quick note, we recorded this as a video because Patrik does a proper show and tell of his screen to show us how this works. So if you want to follow along, watch it on Spotify. No problem if you prefer audio only. You'll still get pretty much all of it. Okay, let's get into it. Dr. Patrik Holmboe, welcome to the VetVault. It's been some time coming. We've had lots of conversations off air, and it's about time we start talking on air.
Yes, glad to be here. Thank you very much.
So, you are the brains behind NovaVet, which, let me see if I can explain it, and then you fix it if I mess it up. To me, you are a collection of tech tools for veterinarians, not just AI, all sorts, but workflow productivity tools in one bundle that makes vet lives easier. Is that a good way of describing it, or how would you put it in better terms?
Yeah, I think that's a pretty good way. I would say we're a little bit of a hybrid of two kind of models, I guess you could say. Number one is your sort of marketplace type, where we connect vet clinics with third-party companies all over the world who are building powerful digital solutions. And number two is we also build some of our own tools. So yeah, it's a sort of a little bit of a hybrid between kind of a distributor, almost, if you think of it in a physical sense, and a manufacturer. So we're doing both.
Right, makes sense. Now you have a whole suite of softwares that are all very interesting, but we're not going to have time to go through all of them. The one that I wanted to double click on first of all was you have something to do with, you have a tool for bill capture, right? Missed billing capture.
Yes, and so that, if we actually pop over here, that's SmartCapture right here.
Okay.
And yeah, SmartCapture is absolutely one of our very interesting tools. It's quite unique. I haven't seen anything else like it. And yeah, like you say, it is looking historically through data using AI algorithms, as everything is doing these days, and it's spotting potential missed charges. And just to be clear what we mean by missed charge, it's a vet, or a nurse I should say, doing something that should be charged to a client, like a nail clip or a blood test, but not charging it for some reason, whether they forgot or intentionally omitted it.
That never happens. What are you talking about, Patrick? Okay. How does it do? What's the mechanism behind it? I'm guessing. So we had in one of my jobs, we actually had one of the vets who did this, who would retrospectively go through the week's bills, and then you'd get an email to say, hey, in these 20 bills, you forgot to add based on, she would read the history, and then she would look at the bills and see if there's a mismatch.
Yeah.
Is this kind of what happens, or how does it work?
That's actually interesting that you say that, because, yeah, it basically is kind of doing what many clinic managers or owners do, but just doing it in a much, much more comprehensive manner and much faster, obviously. And I think, basically any clinic owner knows what mischarges are, and they have found them at some point in time. I mean, you can't almost not find them. At some point, you read some clinical record, yep, and you see something written that is from something that would be billed. You know, somebody talks about some ultrasound findings, and then they glance over at the bill and they see that there is no ultrasound bill or whatever. They see, I always come back to nail clips. They see somebody wrote clipped nails, but there's no nail clip charge. And like you say, some owners or managers spend a ton of time on this. We actually spoke to a 20 clinic group in Eastern Europe, and they actually hired a vet full time to just do this. So that's her entire job, is just to look through notes and spot mischarges.
Which shows you the extent of the economic impact. If it's worth a salary to pay somebody to do it, then it means we're probably missing. Do you have any data on how much we miss as a general rule in the profession?
Yeah, that's another interesting one. Data is actually pretty hard to come by, because it's actually pretty hard to do to comprehensively go through every single charge. Again, it's very easy to spot one here or there, but anybody would know that takes a lot of time. You have to sit there and read the entire notes. So you're literally reading every single note that your vets have written. And so the best data we have is from a report by the American Animal Hospital Association in 2023, or I should say the best and most recent data. And HA is a huge group in the States, and they estimate that 5 to 10% of all revenue is lost to mischarges, which, I mean, that number was sort of one of the bases for us to build SmartCapture, because that's just such a huge number.
Yeah, so basically, if I'm a $1 million revenue vet clinic, then I could potentially be a 1.1 million revenue vet clinic just through missed billing.
Exactly. And even more than that, they broke it down a little bit. The group that is missed the most often is lab tests being missed at 17%. So they estimate that 17%, or 1 out of 5, 1 out of 6 lab tests go unbilled. And lab tests make up a large chunk of a clinic's overall revenue. So yeah, and to come back, interestingly, this clinic this group of clinics that employed a vet just to do this for their 20 clinics, I think the real telling aspect is when we spoke to them, they were very happy with this hire. In a sense where you ask, is she paying for herself? Is she? Yes. For them, it was a great decision. And so I think that also just shows the amount of money that is going out the door. And
then you showed them SmartCapture, and this poor vet lost her job.
Well, that's what was moving that way. But yeah, I think it is just doing what your clinic owner or your clinic manager is doing, probably a little bit on their own, but it's doing it much faster and it's doing it much more comprehensively. And I think that's what's really important, because it's not just, or the end goal is not just to find the charges, but it's then to be able to do something about it. And that's, of course, and if you're just finding charges here and there, you don't really know where you should start to tackle the problem. And I'll get to this more when we look at how SmartCapture works and the results that it gives us.
Okay, well, let's do show and tell. Open it up. Let's have a look.
Okay, so jumping into SmartCapture here, let's jump down and look at how does this actually work. So number one is SmartCapture is looking at 2 sets of data. Number one is clinical notes like this. So, free form written clinical notes. And number 2 is your list of billed charges for a specific consult or case. So we have here the date, the anonymized vet name, the clients, and the pets and everything. So this is coming from the PMS, of course. And it's looking at every single pair, so every consult or case over a set time period. And so this is, April, May, June. So this is a 3-month time period. And initially what it's doing is it's comparing every single case, and it's looking for words and phrases in the notes that correspond with specific charges. So associations, basically. And this is really important because it makes it specific for your clinic. It's not generic. And other sort of pseudo charge capture tools are always very generic. And as we all know, every clinic has very different ways of charging things. And so what this means, sort of very basically, is if your clinic charges for nail clips, if it sees nail clip or nail clipping in the notes, it will most of the time see a nail clip charge. If your clinic doesn't charge for nail clips, and there are ones that don't charge for nail clips, it won't make that association. And so then it won't flag nail clips. And so this is a very key part of SmartCapture, is that it builds a specific, I call it a dictionary, for each clinic or even each clinic branch.
Do you, as a user, give it that data or the rules basically at the front end? So let's say in my vaccinations, nail clippings included in the consult feed. Do I go in the front end and say, hey, by the way, or does it learn as we go?
No, not really learns as we go, but it learns at the very start by looking, before it's even looking for missed charges, it's just making the association.
Oh, gotcha.
What this means is that, if the very first time you run it, we need a decent set of data because it needs enough consults to make these associations. You can't just give it 1 day of consults because then there's just not enough consults to make these associations. And when I say a decent amount, 3 months is our rough cutoff.
Okay.
But yeah, it does. We do also have a few other sort of rules that it looks for, and we're also updating these rules. One kind of interesting example is what's coming very soon is that if it sees a single tablet charged, it will flag that again. So it's not automatically calling it a mischarge, but it will flag it and say, hey, this could be a mistake. Because as we all know, it's very easy. I've done this many times myself. You go to bill some tablets, but you forget to put the quantity. So you just bill that one tablet. It still prints out the label and everything. Of course, there are times where you might bill a single tablet, but it's still, this is feedback we've gotten, and it makes sense that many times a single tablet charged is a mistake. And these are things we can continue to update, these special rules.
Yeah. That's really useful. I think it's such a cool use for AI. This is what it shines at, right? It's the thorough comparison stuff I found in my own work, and I've certainly read studies that said it is categorically better than people at doing exactly this.
Yeah, I think so too. And I think it's kind of interesting that it's a use for AI that isn't a scribe, that isn't writing notes. Because when you say AI in vet medicine or even AI in healthcare, I think everybody is just thinking of clinical recommendations, notes, this kind of stuff. But here it is absolutely a use of AI. You couldn't do this without AI, and yet it is totally different.
Just a very brief interruption with a quick update on what's happening in Vetvault land before we get back into our conversation. First of all, locally here in Australia, I'll be recording live again and speaking this time at Vet Science Week on the Gold Coast from the 24th to the 26th of July. It's still one of my favorite clinical conferences in the world, so please come and say hi to me there. Then we have Vets on touring again in New Zealand in August. That's another one of our snow conferences with a phenomenal lineup with Professor Karen Tobias, yes, the surgeon, Dr. Claire Sharp on ECC, and Dr. Rachel Corman on feline medicine. We have a handful of tickets left for this one, including some half-price tickets for new grads. That's 23, 24, 25 grads. So email us at info@thevetvault.com if you want to find out more, or go to vetsontour.com. Italy in the snow is also all systems go for January 2027, and then our big ticket 2027 event in Africa with 3 professors, Jill Madison, David Church, and Rachel Pollard. I challenge you to find a better location than Serengeti, combined with a better lineup of speakers than that. Tickets are now live at vetsontour.com. Then backing up a bit in time and back here in Australia, I'll also be doing my thing again at the combined conference of the Australian Small Animal Veterinary Association and the Veterinary Business Group's annual conference here in my hometown on the Sunshine Coast from the 17th to the 20th of August. And I'm also thrilled to be involved again in the Green Cross annual conference, Connect 26, in November later this year. That's open to anyone, by the way, not just the team from Green Cross. I would love to see you at any or many of these conferences. All the details are in the links in the show description. Okay, let's get back to Dr. Patrik.
Okay, so we have this big list here. And again, so this is every single consult or case for the clinic, or I should say every single, what you see here is every single one that has at least one mischarge. And so then if we look over here, so then we said, so first it makes this dictionary. Then of course it goes through and looks for potential missed charges. Mm-hmm. And potential is the big word here. And so I'll actually take these off to show you what this looks like when, let's say, if we had just run this data. And so these would be off like this, or they would be blank, I should say. And we can see here that it's a potential mischarge. And so why do we call it potential mischarge? Because we know that even with making this dictionary, that vet clinics really at this point in time, there's so many edge cases, basically. You know, there's so many sort of things that it could falsely flag something as a mischarge, and at least with this level of AI that we have these days. And so what we do is we still, and I guess this is part of kind of our ethos, is that we're not making the decisions for the humans. We are giving them the information they need. Mm-hmm. And so we still want a human to come through and either accept or deny each mischarge.
So for anybody who's not watching, so we have a little box on the side that says potential mischarges, highlights what it is, and a thumbs up, thumbs down. Yes, it was a mischarge, or there's a decline is no, you're wrong.
Yeah,
that wasn't.
Exactly. Exactly. And so we have two examples here. We have this vitamin B12 injection, and we can even see a little note here that it says what the vet wrote. And if we come here, we can see that the vet did write this. I gave B12 today. So pretty clear cut. And of course, then we can look at the charges. There's no charge for vitamin B12. So this is a real mischarge. So we would then accept this as a true mischarge. And so you can see just that's quite simply and quite quick what a manager would do. So a clinic owner or manager would come through, they would run the test, they would come over here, they would accept this, and then they would go down and do this. So let's, what does a declined one look like? Okay, well here we see charge number 2 is this EMLA cream. Mm-hmm. But then we can see, did the vet sell a tube of EMLA cream but forgot to charge it? No. We see here that the notes actually say that they tried to get blood. It wasn't possible even after EMLA. So they used EMLA on the catheter site there, or on the injection site. And obviously this is not a billable charge. And yet, because EMLA is a billed item, and by the way, these are the exact names of the charge for this clinic. So, this clinic has a charge called EMLA cream 30 grams, but that's obviously if you're selling it. Whereas here, they're not selling it. So this is exactly the type of a false positive where, yes, it has made this association that EMLA can be associated with an EMLA cream charge, but not in this case. So that's number one. Then we also, though, have this always decline button. And if this clinic, let's say, notices that vets don't really forget to bill this EMLA cream tube when they're selling it, and yet this false positive is coming up a lot because they use EMLA a lot to just on catheter sites or blood and draw sites, then they can simply click always decline, and that then always declines it. So this is a nice little fail-safe for us that if SmartCapture, like in this case, picks up some false positive that happens commonly, and so it might be, I forget if there's how many of these there are, but if it's something that happens a lot, the user isn't having to sit here declining a bunch of these false charges.
So you are training it by using it to become more specific to your scenario, in a way?
Yeah, in a way, yes. And of course, SmartCapture is also still a pretty new tool, and every time we find things that we can change on the back end as well, just to make it better. Because of course, we're always trying to reduce the false positives. That's a big thing. But I will say that we're okay with there being false positives, obviously, hence why we have this whole system of that you do. Whereas missing a true positive is kind of, that's really bad. So I guess we would want to err on the side of caution, basically. I would much rather make the model more cautious in what it flags and in flagging more rather than trying to super reduce the number of false positives.
I'll point something out that makes this work better, I'm guessing, is if you are using an AI scribe as well. Because I find using AI scribes, my notes are much more comprehensive, and I do, stuff I wouldn't have necessarily remembered to go and write down. It's now going to be in the notes, which will make this better.
That's a great point. And yes, absolutely. And interestingly, I won't say big because it doesn't happen that often, but I have absolutely had real clinic owners and managers say, okay, this looks great, but my vets don't write notes. Or my vets...
a one-line note.
Yeah, exactly. My vets don't write notes.
Castrated.
Yeah, exactly. Or, my vets write really crappy notes. And yes, I mean, that's true. If there are no notes, this does not work. Or you could just say that the better the notes are, the better it works. It will find more things. And so, yes, absolutely, we love the advent of the scribes because you're right. If you do a whole consult and if you clipped the animal's nails, but you didn't write nails clipped, then yes, it won't catch that, of course. However, if you're now using a scribe, you probably mentioned to the owner that you're cutting the animal's nails. You don't just whip out the nail clipper. I mean, maybe sometimes. But as long as you mentioned anything that in your conversation, then it will capture that in the scribe, in the notes. And unless you went ahead and deleted that, which you're probably not going to, then it will capture that.
Okay. Is this the right place to talk about workflow? How does SmartCapture get access to the notes? What does it look like on a user end?
Yes, I would say, but let's just look at the results, basically.
Okay,
and then I think it's more part of the workflow. Because I think one kind of common comment at this time is, okay, this is great. I've now, I'm looking, I know that on May 31st, this vet for this case missed this vitamin B12 injection. Great. But what do I actually do with this info? And obviously, just to be very clear, I am not suggesting that you call up the owner and say, hey, we didn't charge you this injection 3 weeks ago. You need to come back and pay it. No, I'm not saying that. But so what it does is up here. So all the data up here, so the total missed charges, this is all based on the accepted charges. So this continually updates as you accept more charges. And so this clinic, this number here says that we have declared 58% of the total flagged charges for this date range, which if you remember we said was 3 months. Interestingly, this clinic over 3 months had 280 missed charges.
And clarify that 58%. So out of the 280, you've agreed that 58% of them were true mischarges.
No, this is a bit like a progress bar for the user. So this is saying that of the 280 flagged charges, I have declared either positive or negative 58% of them. Gotcha. But what that tells us then, and the reason we have this is because 280 is actually quite a lot, is that we can extrapolate a little bit because here in 58% of the data, we have 116 missed charges.
True confirmed missed charges.
True confirmed accepted missed charges.
Yep.
So, that means that extrapolating out a little bit, if we did 100%, we would probably end up with something like, let's say, 180 missed charges or something like that.
Yep.
In a 3-month period, meaning that we're looking at about 60 missed charges per month, or 2 a day on average. So I think it's just a way to allow you to do some quick maths to get a rough idea of where your clinic is at. And of course, every clinic is very different. But so that's number one. That's a nice little thing. But number two, and I would say this is the most important part, is the topped missed charges. And so what is this showing us here? We can see which charges are missed the most often. And so here we can see that blood pressure monitoring was missed 12 times in this 3-month period, or in 60% of the data. So let's say 19 times in total or something like that. Yep. And whereas the next one was only 7. And this is like the key of SmartCapture. If you had one take-home point, because again, if you think of your average clinic owner who is finding mischarges here and there, a blood test here, nail clip here, it doesn't give them this comprehensive view of what's missed most often. And so then what do they do with just finding mischarges here and there? Like you said, they get annoyed at the vet. They go to the vets and say, hey guys, you have to charge better. And nothing happens because clearly we're still getting all these mischarges. Whereas now, with this data, a clinic management team, let's say they ran this yesterday on the last 3 months, they could sit down and say, okay, wow, blood pressure monitoring is missed a ton. Number 1, why is this happening? And number 2, what do we do about it? And let's say for this clinic, maybe they just recently updated their anesthetic monitoring protocol so that every anesthetic now gets blood pressure monitoring as part of their anesthetic. And because of that, there now should be this blood pressure monitoring charge. However, they haven't gotten around to bundling it into the surgery costs, like, say, other things are bundled into surgery costs. Or if they don't bundle, the vets just aren't used to charging it because, it's kind of a new thing. Yeah. And so that could be an extremely sort of quick, like, light bulb, like, oh, wow, we're missing this so much. But we can obviously see right away why it happened. And then obviously they can do something about it, either just bundle it or whatever else. And I think, anybody who works at a clinic who sees any of these lines, I'm sure could immediately think of 2 or 3 reasons why they might be missed quite often, and 2 or 3 reasons what a clinic could potentially do about it. And yeah.
Really cool.
So I think what it allows a clinic to do is to sit down, the management team, it allows you to be much more tactical in what you do. So they could say, okay, for the next quarter, we are just going to focus on even just the top 1 here, blood pressure monitoring, or the top 3, but we're just going to greatly kind of focus our efforts on which charges are missed the most often.
I like this approach. It's interesting. I had a conversation yesterday with another AI, not vet related, but another AI software developer. And he said, to change a business, to make a business better, more profitable, more productive, it needs to start with data. You need to have the data, and that is onerous. People don't like doing it. And then you need to make a plan around it. And I like this. This is a very real way of saying, well, let's go capture the data so that you can actually do something about it. And the reality is, I look at these things, they get missed because it's a systemic problem. Occasionally you'll leave something out because I did an ultrasound scan and I didn't quote it, and now I don't want the owner to be angry at me, so it'll be a willful mischarge. But for the rest, it's usually just a systemic problem. There's just something, people are just forgetting. So as you say, bundle it, get the nurses to charge the blood pressure because they're the ones doing it, something like that. Yeah, no, for sure. I think, vets have to deal with so much, and we all know charging and billing, is an extremely stressful event, or it can be, it's a part of every single case is this discussion about money. And there absolutely are certain things that make it more difficult. I've worked seriously worked in 3 different clinics and obviously been in many more. And every clinic, charging is confusing. There's so many different things. There's always rules and special rules, and, suture material is bundled into this surgery, but it's not bundled into dentals, and surgery time is this, and there's so many consumables with everything. A bandage change is something as simple as a bandage change. What do you charge for a bandage change? Is it just the bandage change charge? Is it the consult charge? Is it the bandaging material charge? And every clinic has their own rules. And prior to SmartCapture, it was impossible to get this data because no clinic can go through every single consult. And that's the thing, you have to go through every single consult, or at least a huge number of them. And that's just not possible to do prior to this. Okay, cool. Yeah. And then, so just quickly then, number 2, so we have which charges are missed the most often. And by the way, coming soon is the revenue associated with each charge. And so thus you can then sort by which charge is missed the most often, or which charge makes up the most revenue loss. For example, here we have ultrasound
And here we have a hematocrit or a PCV charge. Obviously, an ultrasound costs a lot more than a PCV. And so this ultrasound line, even though they're both missed 7 times, the ultrasound line is going to be a big one. Interestingly, by the way, I'd say across the board, ultrasounds are a big miss. And we obviously know why, you know, the sneaky ultrasound. And,
quick scan. A quick scan.
Yeah, exactly. And, you know, another thing I guess is a big comment is just quickly, because I'm sure somebody's thinking this right now, is, you know, okay, well, my clinic, we sort of do this, and it's okay that we do things for free, like a quick scan or a nail clip sometimes or whatever. And that's fine, obviously, as long if that's your clinic protocol. But as I would say, is the obvious is just charge it, but zero it, you know, zero the cost, because that it standardizes things. So clients don't have one vet charging them for nail clips and another vet not charging them. They see what they're getting, that they're getting it for free in a sense, that they got that quick scan for free, but you know, it's literally an ultrasound scan. I mean, it just gives the client that value sort of perception. And obviously for any kind of data analysis, it puts it in there. You know, how many scans did we do this month? You want to know the sneaky scans as well.
Yeah, and it might change your mind. You might have that attitude of saying, "Oh, I don't mind the occasional free scan," and then you have the numbers in front of you, and you go, "Oh, we've missed out on $40,000 worth of ultrasound quick scans," and then you look at the lease, what you're paying per month for your machine, and you might change your mind on those quick free scans.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, okay, so that's number one of the kind of the data we get. Number two is, as you can see here, which vets are doing the most missing.
That's the uncomfortable bit.
Yeah, it is. I think, yeah, there is certainly the tendency to jump towards that it is a bit uncomfortable, or this kind of like big brother watching you. But I think and this is, by the way, backed up by the clinics who are actually using this immediately, is, like you said a few minutes ago, the reasons for the misses are 95% of the time it's some systemic problem. And what my hypothesis was, and what I would say is starting to get brought out in the data, I'd say the early data supports it, is that the vets who are doing the most missing are often just the busiest vets.
I gotcha.
You know, You are the vet who is, you know, you're kind of the most skilled at ultrasound, but you also do the tricky surgeries. And as we all know, even if you're fully booked, but if you're the kind of go-to ultrasonographer, then when that emergency comes in that needs a quick ultrasound, you just have to do it, even though you're fully booked anyway with your own consults. Or somebody needs help with the surgery, or you're mentoring the junior vets, or this kind of thing. And yeah, quite clearly, the more stressed and overworked you are, the more either true mistakes you're going to make, you know, actually forgetting something, or you just don't want to fight. You just don't have that energy to fight with a client over a bill, you know, that you know it's going to be a fight, and you're just like, ugh, whatever, like I'm just going to leave this ultrasound off, this kind of stuff. And yeah, I mean, I have not had one feedback that's sort of, yeah, this top missing vet is just a lazy bum. But what this lets, again, the clinic do is, instead of just going to all the vets and saying, hey guys, you need to charge better, it allows them to, same as the charges, to think, okay, why is this person the top missing vet, and what can we do about it in a much, much more focused and tactical way?
Love it. Okay. So, are we at workflow? How does SmartCapture get access to the data?
Yes. So, as we said, we need 2 sets of data. We need the notes, and we need the billed charges. In most PMSs, getting the list of billed charges is pretty easy. And that's because this is first let's talk about the non-integrated world. For most PMSs, getting the list of billed charges is pretty easy. And that's because it's a pretty standard data export from basically any PMS. They have various lines, but invoice lines is what EasyVet calls it, or billed items. Basically a spreadsheet that shows every single billed item along with a bunch of identifiers like the date, the client, the patient. And I almost guarantee you, if you do anything with a clinic's finances, you've probably seen a data export that looks like this. Mm-hmm. However, number 2, the build notes is unfortunately not as easy for most PMSs. And that's because this isn't a standard data export. And so here it really depends on the PMS. And I think this also gets to a very kind of key point of SmartCapture is that in the non-integrated world, what we know, we're still quite early, but what we can see already is that getting the data for a non-integrated user, and by the way, once you get the data, you just upload it here to this button, but getting the data is a major hurdle. And it is actually the hurdle. The tool works. It does what it says it's going to do. It finds charges and it lets clinics address those charges and really start capturing big chunks of revenue that they didn't even know was missing. However, getting the data can be not the easiest depending on your PMS. So that's why for us, what we are obviously working on very hard is integrations with PMSs, because that then, of course, if you can just press a button and the data just goes automatically from your PMS, that really just removes that one hurdle. It's the holy grail for us for sure. And I'd love to show you our first example of this and just what it allows a clinic to do.
Yes, please. I would love to see it, because I get excited by that, about completely automating the process. I'll get back to that, but show me what you've got, and then we'll dig into the future, hopefully.
So what I'm jumping over here is we are now officially integrated with a medium-sized PMS based in France called VetUp that you can see up here. And this has released just a few weeks ago, actually, the sort of official launch of this. And as an aside, we are also in talks in other PMSs, including larger and more global ones. And about a few months ago, we have been also officially accepted and on track for EasyVet integration, which I'm sure your listeners have heard of EasyVet.
Big win.
And so we are working through the process to become an integrated partner of EasyVet. And so I think PMSs are obviously interested in this because it just immediately allows their users to do something important that they were not in any way able to do before. So let's then look at what does then the integrated, like you said, workflow. How would an actual user use this? So this is a test clinic in EasyVet. I think any vet professional would sort of see basic things that we're seeing here. It has your kind of main screen with appointments, clients, owners, all the standard PMS stuff. And I would say, for every other PMS, everything will work quite similarly. The actual integration part of it is very simple. All we just need that data. Mm-hmm. And so if we come over here, this is, by the way, translated into English. So VetUp is a French PMS. So the words maybe aren't exactly, but so they have this stats page here, which is, would probably be called finances or something like that in any other PMS, admin, whatever. And here you can see, all the standard kind of admin, financial type stuff. Obviously, by the way, only certain users of a clinic would have access to this page. Your standard employees would not have access to all of this, and your standard employees should not have access to SmartCapture either. It is a financial administrative tool. And up here, we can now see SmartCapture. If we mouse over it, we get a nice little diagram showing what it does. And if we click on it here, we actually get to quite a simple screen where, okay, there's some information, but really what's most important here is just that it just gives us a date range selector. And if we go back to our previous data here, we can see that, or no, this was not our previous data. This was our previous data. It was for a 3-month set. And I would say in the non-integrated version, because you are needing to upload the data manually, mm-hmm. most clinics we see are running it roughly in that date range. So in every 2 to 3 months.
Okay, and so very much retrospective.
Certainly
for many clinics. Retrospective with the goal for future planning rather than let's act on it now before the pet walks out the door.
Yeah, and I think part one that I would say is I think regardless of what you do otherwise, which I'll show you in a second, I think doing kind of that quarterly cycle is actually a really powerful cycle. Because if you think about it, let's say we were this clinic, let's say we ran this today on the last quarter, and these were our results. and we decide, okay, wow, we need to make a change to blood pressure monitoring. Let's sit down and think about it. It's probably going to take, we all know clinics are very busy. It'll probably take, let's say, a couple weeks for the clinic to sit down, to go through the results, to decide why the things are happening, what they're going to do about it. Then communicate those changes to the team. And then, of course, you want to so let's say that takes you 1 month. Then you want to let those changes run for a while, let's say 2 months. And so then you run it again after 3 months to assess your progress. And obviously we'd want to see these numbers coming down. So I think that quarterly cycle is a very powerful cycle. Run it, spend a month to decide what to do and to communicate the changes, and then 2 months to run the changes, basically. But as we'll see, with the PMS integration, you can, of course, still do that, and I would still recommend you do that, but it opens up additional use cases. Mm-hmm. Basically, running it as you're getting to, running it on a much more frequent basis, which then closes that kind of feedback loop time, allows you to make more on-the-spot decisions. And so let's come back to it. And it's extremely basic here. You just set a date range and you run it. So I could now, let's say, and I can still run it for 3 months, but let's say I just wanted to run it for a particular week. So Monday the 2nd of March to Monday the 8th of March, let's say. And then I just click Start Audit. And now it opens up a page. It does take a little bit of time to run because, of course, it has to do that whole analysis. Yep. And so here we can see that I have run all these different kind of date ranges here. Mm-hmm. And so I could go back and look at previous. So let's look at this one. So here we can see I ran it for the month of March. So the 1st of March to the 31st. And as we can see, I've only declared 5% of the data, and yet we still have, and it's obviously in French as well. But yeah, you can see something very similar here, that it's notes, charges, and potential missed charges. And so I think this sort of integration it tackles the only hurdle to using SmartCapture. And because it's now so easy to run, a manager or an owner could run this, once a week, once a day, or whatever. It could be much more part of their on-the-go process.
I immediately picture, again, my background has been in emergency for a long time, so they long, chaotic, never-ending 24/7 operational, and it's chaos. So I imagine lots of missed bills, lots of many bundles. So let's say for 7 a.m. in the morning, practice manager comes in, runs the last 24 hours, and 80% of those patients might still be in hospital. That's a fantastic way to go. Okay, well, I'm just going to go through those bills and just bill them. So immediately you decrease that.
Yeah, that's the holy grail, is to actually capture it before the animal leaves the building. And you're absolutely correct. For hospitalized patients, or you could say, let's say, for bigger, more intensive clinics, like you say, emergency clinics or specialist type clinics that are seeing your bigger, more intensive cases that are there for multiple days, absolutely. I think the other kind of interesting thing to talk about here is another very common talking point is we want a real-time version of SmartCapture. So something that works in real time to capture that money before it leaves the building rather than historical analysis.
Yeah, when I click finalize bill, it has to pop up with a window and say, hey, it looks like you missed XYZ.
Yeah. And I think this is actually a very interesting topic. And so number one, let's talk about, okay, what would we need to build a real-time version? And actually, there's two big things we need to build them. Number one is the deep PMS integration, because obviously it has to then now function fully within the PMS, that it's reading every build when they click that button, et cetera, et cetera. That's not that difficult, or it just takes time. And as we can see, we're starting with the PMS integrations now. Number two, though, interestingly, is of course it means that the notes need to be written before the animal leaves the building. And I think that we would all agree that even just a few years ago, that wasn't that common. Vets were not writing their notes before the animal leaves the building that often.
Yeah.
However, as we also said, there is a really big class of tools that is causing this to become much, much more common, and that is your scribes. The scribes write your note instantly as soon as you click End Consult.
Yeah.
And so, yes, with the advent and the increase of popularity of the scribes, and by the way, the scribes are not going anywhere, so they will get more and more used. With that, that is actually unlocking that second required point, that the notes, at least in more and more cases, are being written before the animal leaves the building. However, I would also posit that there are some actual issues with the real-time version. I think the real-time version sounds great. Issue number one, though, is, if you remember, we said that a charge can be missed for two broad reasons. One, the vet actually forgets to put the charge on, but two is the sort of intentional omission, which of course can be due to lots of different reasons. And obviously the real-time version is only really tackling the first part there, right? If the vet meant to leave that ultrasound off, they'll just click the warning away. And so that's kind of the one major issue, is that it's only really
click the warning away and then go into the notes and delete the little bit that talks about
I guess this is like one way to think about it. But so I think the other thing is just that the real-time version it's kind of what like firefighting, right? It's just attacking the problems as they pop up, like whack-a-mole a little bit. It's not, like you said, it's not addressing the systemic reasons why. So I agree. I mean, in the perfect world, I think both. I think if you had to pick one, I honestly think the historical analysis, because again, it addresses the underlying reason, is actually more powerful.
That's really awesome. I love the idea and the thinking behind it and where it is potentially going. I like when we think about AI in really practical ways like that can make a very quick difference to a business, right? It's not a theoretical thing. It is pull this lever and you can make a big difference to the bottom line.
Yeah, I think so. And I love this problem, I think, because it's something that basically, let's say, every single owner or manager has thought about this, has come across it, has gotten annoyed at a vet here and there. And so, I think it's just like you said at the very beginning, it's like the perfect problem for an AI to tackle. Yeah.
All right. Patrik, thank you so much for enlightening us and for helping us think differently about AI. It's going to start pulling on levers elsewhere in the clinic that you couldn't have imagined previously.
Yeah. All right. Well, look, thanks. It was really great being on here and talking. And I mean, as you can hear, I love talking about this stuff. Such an exciting time to be in vet tech, let's say. And I just can't wait to see what the future holds for sure.
Before you disappear, I wanted to tell you about my weekly newsletter. I speak to so many interesting people and learn so many new things while making the clinical podcasts. So I thought I'd create a little summary each week of the stuff that stood out for me. We call it the VetVault 321, and it consists of 3 clinical pearls. These are 3 things that I've taken away from making the clinical podcast episodes. My light bulb moments. 2 other things. These could be quotes, links, movies, books, a podcast highlight, maybe even from my own podcast. Anything that I've come across outside of clinical vetting that I think that you might find interesting. And then 1 thing to think about, which is usually something that I'm pondering this week and that I'd like you to ponder with me. If you'd like to get these in your inbox each week, then follow the newsletter link in the show description wherever you're listening. It's free and I'd like to think it's useful. Okay, we'll see you next time.